BBC4 heads deeper into the Congo now for the tale of a shockingly cruel Belgian king and his quest for rubber and wealth. With some scenes that may upset some viewers, Storyville presents White King, Red Rubber, Black Death.
When a series of missionary photographs arrived in England in the late 19th century, they caused outrage. The mutilations had been strategically photographed against white for maximum impact. The children came from the Congo, but the man accused of their suffering was white, European, and royal. For almost 100 years, evidence has lain dormant of one of the greatest mass murders. Millions of Africans died in one man's quest for wealth and glory. Until Adolf Hitler arrived on the scene, the European standard for cruelty was set by a king. Leopold II, King of the Belgians, was the personal owner of 1 million square miles of Central Africa and king sovereign of 20 million Africans. In the 1880s and 90s, the world outside Africa wanted rubber for its new bicycle and car industries, and Leopold's Congo Free State had the world's largest supply of wild rubber. The king had struck gold, black gold. He was determined to get as much rubber to Europe as he could, and as fast as he could.
The rubber in this district has cost hundreds of lives, and the scenes I have witnessed while unable to help the oppressed have been almost enough to make me wish that I were dead.
Over a period of 20 years, Leopold turned the Congo into a vast labor camp 80 times the size of Belgium, in the process making himself into one of the richest men in the world. As the number of deaths grew, so did his profits.
This rubber traffic is steeped in blood. And were the natives to rise and sweep every white person on the upper Congo into eternity, there would still be left a fearful balance to their credit.
But the longer the king stayed in the Congo, the greater the evidence against him. Missionaries, travelers, and the victims all added to the clamor for the king to be stopped.
Nasima mikolo misato tozongi na mboka tomoni bibembe libanda ya lopango ezinga ndako ya nkumu tomoni na singa moko bakangi na katikati ya zete mibale makata sambo euti ya epai ya mobali. Singa wana ekangamaki na likolo.
Astonishingly, for the time, there were calls for Leopold to be hanged at the new International Court of Justice in The Hague.
If there were such thing as criminal prosecutions in international affairs, then assuredly a true bill would be found against the sovereign who obtained not a paltry sum of money, but a whole empire by false pretenses.
Instead of being hanged, Leopold was reinvented as a great humanitarian king, a great civilizer. The Congolese historian Elikia Ambokolo believes that the truth about Leopold's crimes was deliberately hidden to protect Belgium and Belgian interests in the Congo. This film details the charges against King Leopold and reveals a cover-up of monumental proportions. The signs of the wealth that Leopold amassed are everywhere in Brussels, and on an enormous scale. The king built the Cinquantenaire to celebrate the country's 50th anniversary. It's become part of the national identity.
The Cinquantenaire is a very expressive symbol of Belgium and of the proud Belgium. In fact, King Leopold paid for it with his own money, but he didn't say so openly, because this would prove that, first of all, he had a lot of money. People would ask questions where it came from, and then he would have to admit that it came from the Congo. So the Cinquantenaire symbolizes this lie about Belgium and about the royal implication in politics, about the colonial exploitation.
C'est incroyable de voir tous ces embellissements, toutes ces réalisations, toutes ces richesses, sans une seule référence au Congo et aux Congolais. Après tout, si Léopold II a pu entreprendre tout ceci, c'est grâce à la richesse du Congo, au sang des Congolais, aux souffrances des Congolais, à l'exploitation du Congo. C'est incroyable, cette manie d'effacer le Congo.
The Royal Museum for Central Africa was also built by Leopold and paid for with Congo money. It's a vision of Africa through Leopold's eyes and with a huge dose of homage. Homage to Leopold, who gave the Belgians a colony, and homage to the pioneers who died carrying out the king's wishes. White conquest is mythologized as benevolence, as bringing civilization to the Congo.
Cet endroit laisse un sentiment étrange, un mélange de gêne, de surprise et d'incrédulité. Partout revient le même message. Au Congo, les Belges n'ont fait que de bonnes choses, de très bonnes choses. Ce message à usage interne s'adresse aussi au monde extérieur et dit en substance ceci: reconnaissez donc l'œuvre civilisatrice de Léopold II au Congo. Reconnaissez la légitimité de la présence belge au Congo.
On m'accuse d'avoir fait fusiller un indigène, ligoté à un arbre. Je suis également accusé d'avoir mené une attaque contre un village, au cours de laquelle beaucoup de Noirs ont été tués. On m'accuse d'ailleurs, ainsi que 5 autres Blancs, d'avoir tué 150 personnes, d'avoir pendu en forme de croix des femmes et des enfants, ainsi que d'avoir coupé les organes génitaux et les têtes d'hommes pour les attacher aux palissades.
There is no doubt that a lot of things happened in Congo Free State under King Leopold II that are clearly unacceptable, that are even scandalous. But one has to look at the sign of the times, and the sort of none of the colonial powers in those days were really softies and had a fairly human approach. I mean, only look at what the Brits and the French and the Dutch who introduced slave trade, or the Germans were doing. So it's not a period of which we can be very proud, but one has to look at it in a particular perspective of time and of history.
Leopold's Congo was a prison state. Africans had no rights, no justice, and no freedom. They were there to serve a voracious European king. Thousands of miles away, Leopold was content that the end always justified the means, and the end was to make money. A large slice of the Congo profit was earmarked for Ostend. Leopold set about turning a seaside village into a rival to Queen Victoria's Brighton. Ostend was going to be his most expensive architectural project. He built Venetian galleries to shelter the rich from the cold North Sea, a palace for himself, a casino, a golf course, and a racetrack. Leopold never completed his grand scheme, but a grateful people honored him with a giant statue.
Nu staan we hier voor een monument. Een monument dat maar dateert van 1931. Dat wil zeggen, 22 jaar na het overlijden van de koning. Verplicht ons om op te kijken vanuit kikvorstperspectief naar de koning. En men verplicht ons dat romantische voorstelling van het zogezegde nationale grootste verleden.
And that romantic vision of Belgium's past has to be carefully protected.
Dan is het soms moeilijk als ik een groep voor mij heb om te weten natuurlijk hoe de mensen staan tegenover die koning. Maar ik moet zeggen, als ik vermoed dat er echt zware royalisten of mensen die dus geen enkel kwaad woord over Leopold willen horen bij zijn, dan ben ik zeer voorzichtig, moet ik wel zeggen.
Once Leopold dominated Kinshasa too, but in the last years of his reign the Congo was handed over to the Belgian state, which gratefully held control in his name for half a century.
Et c'est ainsi qu'au cœur de l'Afrique noire, la Belgique réalise le rêve d'un grand roi.
The king no longer has pride of place. The Congo is independent. Leopoldville is now Kinshasa, and Leopold is in a junkyard.
Pour moi, c'était Léopold II en personne. Pas la statue de Léopold II, mais Léopold II. Tellement grand, tellement haut, qui semblait être là pour m'écraser, me dominer. Et puis, pas question de passer devant le cheval. Il fallait passer derrière. C'est comme si je me sentais obligé de respirer l'odeur des excréments du cheval de Léopold II. Après l'indépendance, il était encore là. C'était une vraie provocation. Et puis enfin, est arrivé le jour où je suis là et je vois des jeunes gens tirer Léopold II. Une revanche, une joie de voir enfin ce scandale par terre, là où il devait se trouver.
But it takes more than destroying symbols to wipe out generations of foreign occupation.
On a Leopold, roi Leopold.
Ah,
oui.
Il y a ça là qui
Azaraki mo kondimonene, c'est un Belge oyo a colonisé biso aw.
Donc biso na ye toza na likambo.
Bon, azano kona biso ye nde moto aleki colonisation na biso nde moto aleki biso civilisation ezali ye.
Leopold once wrote, "A people which is content with its homeland and which dreads even the shadow of a conflict lacks the characteristics of a superior race."
A Belgian officer had been dispatched with a force of some 50 or 60 men to capture a chief. In rummaging in the huts for plunder, they came upon two women, a mother and daughter, who had not had the time to get away. They were brought up before the officer, who demanded of them where the chief was in hiding. They either did not know or would not tell. He ordered them to be secured and laid out on the ground. And a stalwart soldier then proceeded to administer 50 strokes of the shakot to each. The flogging continued until each had received 200 lashes. Finally, this Belgian officer ordered his men to cut off the breasts of the women and left them to die where they lay.
In Brussels, the statues of Leopold have not been pulled down. The old king is still part of a Belgian dynasty.